Hello, good morning. My name is Sean Lara, and I welcome you to another edition of Sunday Morning Dose. Here at Sunday Morning Dose, we look at God's Word from Christ's perspective. If it will not make sense to Christ, it will not make sense here, because we protect the interest of Christ and of Christ alone. So today we'll continue on the series we started about beyond stories, that the narrations in the Bibles are beyond stories and should be seen as one. We should study those stories and we should be able to draw out lessons and principles. It is at that point that we would be able to maximize those narrations for our good. So today we'll look at another quite interesting story of how parenthood could shape the life of a child or their children. How good parenthood could change the life of a child. According to probably the wisest man on earth, Solomon, he said that train up a child in the way he should go, that when a child is grown, he will not depart from his teachings, from those teachings. He actually taught about you training a child the way it should go, that you could model the destiny of a child in the way it should go. And then King Lemuel would echo the same story in the passage of the Bible, Proverbs 31, where King Lemuel said that the sayings of King Lemuel are an inspired utterance his mother taught him. Another translation says, these are the sayings that the King Lemuel of Massa was taught by his mother. So parents are responsible for how their child will turn out to be. Parenthood is a serious business and we must take it as such. So taking it as such, let's look at how a man called Joseph will be reshaped and will be helped into vision, into purpose by his parents. In Genesis chapter 37, that's where the whole story of how his life will be shaped by his parents. In verse 3, Joseph was born when his father Israel, also called Jacob, was old. So Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons. He made Joseph a special robe with long sleeves. So we must get this, that Joseph was born when his father Jacob was old. What does that mean? It means that at this point Jacob would have time for children because he was old. He has gone past the time of not being at home, being here and there, hustling, like we would say. And then he has gone past that time. Now he has that time for Joseph. Coincidentally, Joseph was born at this time where Jacob would have time, would be settled at home to have time for his children. So what lesson should we learn? Have time, dedicate time for children, for your children. Dedicate time for them. Dedicate time for them. Dedicate time for them. You would pay special attention to them when you have dedicated necessary time for them. Jacob here was taught by nature because he could not cheat nature anymore. He is old. You don't have to get old to begin to dedicate time for your children. And we'll see the consequence of the ones that he trained when he was still here and there, and the one he trained when he was old. So dedicate time for them. What that means is that it will be able to spread love. So what that translated to for Joseph was that he was able to provide for his needs. He made him robe. He was able to feel the fatherly love. He was able to feel that fatherly love. We must be able to touch our children better than anything else here on earth. We must be able to let them feel love, and it starts from you dedicating that special time for them. It starts from there. So that time would give us the opportunity to study them, to study what they need and their area of interest, and he made a special cloth for him. See the consequence of this special robe that Jacob made for his son. So Joseph's brothers saw that their father loved Joseph more than he loved them. Verse 4. So they hated their brother and could not speak to him politely. Jacob caused this. Jacob's affection came more for Joseph, and they never had those affection. The consequence, he only had time for Joseph because he was old. He could no longer cheat nature, and the ones he had while he was agile, while he was in his youth, he didn't have time for them, and they had no choice but to feel jealous. Don't train your family like that. Don't bring up your family like that. Even in your busy schedule, in your moment of hustling, create special time for the one you are having. Create it. If you have them, it is advisable not to have them at the point where you're hustling. But if you have them, then create time for them so that they would not feel jealous of the Joseph that you love. Not necessarily because you wanted to love, but because nature has condemned you to sit at home. Nature has condemned Jacob to sit at home. So his area of comfort and his area of relationship will be the ones available, and Joseph was the one available. But the way the brothers translated it was that they translated it as being partial, as being jealous. So you must also create equal system in the family, in the system where everyone feel loved, not to be threatened by some other person, not to be threatened by the love you're showing to their siblings, that everyone feel loved. We must learn this, and we must begin to work on it. If not, we will create brothers for Joseph that would hate him. In verse 9, then Joseph had another dream. So the consequence of Joseph being clothed with a coat of many colors, like another translation would put it, is that he began to feel love. He felt loved, and then he began to believe in himself. And one of the things that would happen to us when we feel loved and we begin to believe in ourselves is that we begin to dream. We'll begin to dream dreams. There will be capacity and capabilities that in us that we can move the mountain, that we can touch the sky. Remember, Jesus said, if you believe in your heart and not doubt, you will say to the mountain, be moved, and it shall be moved. And one of the ways beliefs come is through love. We must express love. We must express love. So Joseph had felt love, and Joseph started having dreams. And so the consequence of having dreams is what we would see. So then Joseph had another dream. He told his brothers about it. He said, listen, I had another dream. I saw the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing down to me. He saw himself on top of the world. That is what will happen. You don't want your child to be molested. You don't want your child to feel less of themselves. You don't want your child to feel less confidence. You want the self-esteem to be high. Let them feel loved. Let them feel loved. You don't want them to follow peer pressure. You don't want them to be influenced by others negatively. Make them feel loved. Make them feel loved. He was on top of the world. The only dream Joseph could be having at this point is him on top of the world, not any other person on top of him. There was so much self-belief that he has generated in himself because of the fatherly love that he enjoyed. So many people out there are not conquering, not necessarily because they've been made not to conquer, but because they've not felt the love. And who is responsible? You and I. We are the one responsible. The father, the parent, the mother. We are the one responsible for making sure that our children conquers the world. And it starts from us making sure that they are loved. That we are deliberately orchestrating our old age, which is to create time for our children. We must. It's a must. So let's rush into this. I will advise you to read the whole chapter of Genesis chapter 37. In verse 18, Joseph's brothers saw him coming from afar. Before he reached them, they made a plan to kill him. So it won't stop. If you have not shown them love, don't think they would suddenly develop love. These guys were not loved. They didn't feel loved. So the only response to progress, the only response to the sibling progressing is hatred. It's just them. It's just them. So don't blame them when they act when they act in a certain manner that you don't like. You made them so. So before making them now, train them up in the way they should go. Unfortunately for Jacob, he has trained these ones in the wrong way they should go. Unfortunately, it didn't make them ropes. It didn't make them clothes of many colors. It didn't make them believe in themselves. It didn't make them feel loved. And they feel threatened with another person. So train up a child in the way it should go. Train up a child in the way it should go. He has trained a murderer. He has trained murderers. He has trained people of so much hate. And here is the consequence. They decided to sell Joseph, their brother. So verse 27, let's sell him to this Ishmaelite. Then we will not be guilty of killing our own brother. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. And the other brothers agreed. So what value have you put in them? See, they acknowledge that this guy is their brother. They acknowledge it. They acknowledge that what they are about to do, which is killing their brother, will be evil. They acknowledge it. But they would not stop at selling their brother because of the value that Jacob had imputed into these guys. Jacob had imputed the value that money is over human. And that is what we see here. That is what we celebrate here. That is a wrong value. That is a value that would destroy any society. That human lives is less to money, to cash rather. No, you don't want to raise people in a society that way. You want to raise conscious people, a humanity-driven set of people. You don't want to raise a child in this way where he could sell even his own brother for money or for material possession. You don't want to do that, and you should not encourage that to happen. And in order not to encourage that to happen, you should train up a child in the way he should go, because when he's grown, that's all. So in verse 33, Jacob looked it over and said, "It is my son's robe. Some savage animal has eaten him." My son Joseph has been torn to pieces. My son Joseph has been torn to pieces. Do not just be moved by materials. Do not just be moved by everything you've seen. They presented what he needed to see, and he was convinced by what he saw that his son has been killed by animal. They faked Joseph's death, and he tricked to it because material was his own highest value for human too. Material could tell him everything and sum it up. So once the material is stored, once material is taken, it's an evidence that life has been taken for him. And you should not get to that point. You should not raise families who are driven, who are greedy, who would do anything for just materials. Who would do anything for just materials? Who would conclude on their capacity and inherent skills on just what is available in the physical or what is not. You can't afford to train your family that way. We are already suffering the consequence of that. We are already suffering the consequence of that as a society where millions could die. But if your material is safe and if your money is safe, you are good. No, you should not train a child up that way. It's not just going to backfire on you, it's going to backfire to the ones and the things you love most. So they sold Joseph, the thing and to the one Jacob loved most. They sold him and faked his death. Verse 36, meanwhile, the Midianites who had bought Joseph had taken him to Egypt. There they sold him to Potiphar. Potiphar was an officer to the king of Egypt and captain of the palace guard. So Solomon said that when he is grown, he will not depart from it. So when you train a child, when you have done your part, when you have put your part into motion, trust the universe to help in directing your son. So what happened is that you should not lose hope on any child. They thought they've killed him. He has lost hope, but you should not lose hope, because when you have done your part, the universe, God, has a way of setting in to bring about the manifestation of the dreams and vision that he has given to your child. So you should trust God more than you trust the training for the result. So he doesn't know where the child is right now. He actually has concluded that the child is dead, but God had another plan. God decided to lead the Midianites into Egypt, and they did not just were led into Egypt. They sold Joseph to a chief in Egypt, to a major politician in the administration of Pharaoh, Potiphar. So the journey to the dream that Joseph had, the beginning of manifestation of Joseph's dream has just begun. But guess what Jacob thought he had finished? So when you have trained a child in the way it should go, when you have done your possible best for a child, trust the universe, that the universe would help you going further. And trust the child, trust your child, trust what you have imputed in your child. Trust them to make decisions, trust them to make decisions on life partner, trust them to make decisions on career, trust them to make decisions on things that concerns you also. Trust them to make decisions. Trust that God would help those teachings germinate. I hope this has helped. Till we see another time, same station next week. This is Sunday Morning Dose. The narrations in the Bible are beyond stories. begin to act in accordance. Thank you.